Transactions are my specialty.
All right, what's the catch?
You gotta give a day to get a day. That's all. Just sign it. And by the time...
Shrek Forever After stands as the chapter that closes the main story of the Green Ogre in a way that feels both reflective and emotionally complete, focusing less on fairy tale parody and more on the inner conflict of a character who has everything yet feels something important is missing. By this point in the saga, Shrek is no longer the feared monster who wanted to be left alone in his swamp. He is a husband, a father, and a celebrity in the kingdom of far, far away, surrounded by crowds who cheer him instead of running in fear. The movie builds its core idea around this irony, showing how Shrek's greatest wish is not for more fame or comfort, but for a return to the simplicity and meaning he once had when his life felt real and earned. The story opens by showing how far Shrek's life has drifted from his roots. His days are filled with scheduled appearances, public celebrations, and endless expectations. People want him to roar on command, sign pitchforks, and entertain them as a living legend. While this attention once might have seemed impossible, it now drains him. The swamp that once represented freedom and solitude feels crowded even when it is physically empty, because the memory of constant noise and pressure follows him everywhere. This emotional setup is important because it explains why Shrek is vulnerable to making a dangerous choice later in the film. At the heart of the movie is the theme of identity and regret. Shrek begins to question whether he has lost himself by gaining everything he thought he wanted. He loves Fiona and his children, but he misses being feared and respected for who he was, not celebrated as a novelty. This inner conflict reaches a breaking point during his children's birthday celebration, where chaos, noise, and endless responsibility finally push him over the edge. In a moment of anger and frustration, he lashes out at those around him, especially Fiona, and storms away feeling misunderstood and trapped by his own life. This emotional low point is where the film introduces its central antagonist, Rumpelstiltskin, who represents temptation and false solutions. Unlike the loud villains of earlier films, Rumpelstiltskin is quiet, manipulative, and patient. He offers Shrek a deal that seems harmless on the surface, one day to feel like a real ogre again, in exchange for a day from Shrek's past that supposedly means nothing. The movie carefully frames this deal as a test of wisdom rather than strength, showing how even heroes can fall when they let frustration override gratitude. When Shrek signs the contract, the story shifts dramatically, revealing the consequences of careless wishes. He is transported into an alternate version of Far, Far Away, a dark and oppressive place ruled by Rumpelstiltskin. In this twisted reality, Shrek was never born, meaning he never scared villagers, never met Donkey, never rescued Fiona, and never became the hero everyone remembers. The land is bleak, ogres are hunted, and hope is scarce. This alternate world serves as a mirror that forces Shrek to confront what his existence truly meant to others. One of the most powerful elements of the movie is how it reintroduces familiar characters in unfamiliar roles. Fiona is no longer a sheltered princess waiting in a tower. Instead, she has grown into a hardened warrior who leads an ogre resistance against Rumpelstiltskin's rule. Without Shrek to rescue her, she saved herself, but at the cost of losing her belief in love and fairy tale endings. This version of Fiona is strong and capable, yet emotionally closed off, highlighting how Shrek's presence changed her life in ways he never fully appreciated. Donkey also appears differently in this altered reality. Without Shrek as his anchor, he is cautious, fearful, and less confident, having learned that trust often leads to pain. Their friendship must be rebuilt from scratch, emphasizing that the bond they shared was not inevitable but earned through shared experiences and mutual support. Puss in Boots, another fan-favorite character, is presented in a humorous but symbolic way, having fallen into comfort and excess, which contrasts with his former heroic image and reinforces the film's focus on lost purpose. As Shrek navigates this broken world, the story becomes a journey of rediscovery rather than conquest. Instead of defeating enemies through strength, he must prove who he is through actions and choices. He learns that being an ogre was never just about being feared. It was about standing up for others, forming connections, and choosing love even when it was difficult. Each interaction pushes him closer to understanding that the life he once took for granted was meaningful precisely because of its challenges. The relationship between Shrek and Fiona in this timeline is the emotional core of the film. Shrek must make Fiona fall in love with him before the day ends, or he will cease to exist forever. This task is not romanticized as destiny, but shown as difficult and uncertain. Fiona resists him, questions his intentions, and refuses to believe in the kind of love Shrek promises. Their growing connection is slower and more fragile, built on shared battles and quiet moments rather than instant attraction. Rumpelstiltskin's role becomes more threatening as the deadline approaches. He is not driven by rage or revenge, but by control and entitlement, believing the world owes him power. His manipulation of contracts and loopholes reflects a darker kind of villainy, one rooted in exploitation rather than destruction. By placing him in charge of Far, Far Away, the film shows what happens when cleverness is separated from empathy. Creating a ruler who sees people as assets rather than lives, the climax of the movie brings together its emotional and thematic threads. As the sun rises and the contract nears completion, Shrek faces the possibility of vanishing forever. In a moment of quiet acceptance, he finally understands that the life he wished away was perfect, not because it was easy, but because it was real. Fiona's kiss, which comes too late by fairy tale standards, still carries meaning because it represents choice rather than fate. Even when the magic seems to fail, the emotional truth remains intact. The resolution restores the original timeline, but Shrek returns changed. He no longer longs for his past life as a feared ogre, because he now understands that his identity is not defined by solitude or fame, but by love, responsibility, and growth. The movie ends with a celebration that mirrors earlier scenes, yet feels different because Shrek is now fully present in his life instead of resenting it. This closing note reinforces the idea that happiness is not found by rewriting the past, but by appreciating the present. The cast plays a major role in delivering this emotional depth. The familiar voices behind Shrek, Fiona, Donkey, and Puss bring continuity and warmth, allowing the characters to feel like old friends rather than recycled figures. The performance behind Rumpelstiltskin stands out for its subtle menace, proving that a villain does not need overwhelming power to be memorable. Together, the cast balances humor and sincerity, ensuring the film remains entertaining while tackling more mature themes. In terms of storytelling, Shrek Forever After leans less on pop culture jokes and more on character-driven humor. The comedy arises from personality clashes, ironic situations, and emotional truth rather than constant references. This shift helps the movie feel like a conclusion rather than another episodic adventure. It respects the audience's emotional investment in the characters and rewards longtime viewers with a story that feels earned. The visual style of the film supports its darker tone, especially in the alternate timeline. Shadows, muted colors, and harsher environments replace the bright fantasy landscape seen earlier in the series. This contrast makes the restored world feel warmer and more alive by comparison. The animation emphasizes facial expressions and body language, allowing subtle emotions to come through even during comedic moments. The promotional material for the movie focused heavily on the idea of a twisted fairy tale, teasing audiences with images of a world where Shrek never existed. The trailer highlighted the darker stakes while still promising humor and heart, making it clear that this chapter would be different from what came before. Rather than selling the film as just another adventure, the marketing framed it as a final test for a character audiences had grown up with. As a concluding chapter, Shrek Forever After succeeds by bringing the story back to its emotional roots. It reminds viewers why Shrek mattered in the first place, not as a parody of fairy tales but as a symbol of self-acceptance and love beyond appearances. By focusing on regret, gratitude, and choice, the movie leaves a lasting message that resonates beyond its animated world. It closes the book on Shrek's journey with a sense of completion, showing that true happily ever after is not about perfection, but about understanding what truly matters.